Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me this morning. I know we'll probably have a couple more people hopping on just as the link was sent out a few minutes ago. Assumed I sent it out this morning, but that was my bad, so I apologize. Thank you for joining me. My name is Kaylin Clark, and we are going to be talking about using Ohio TechCred, how to use it, what you can use it for, and then our trainings here at AWT. So this is going to be a little bit laid back. If you have any questions, please just speak up. And then we'll leave some time for questions at the end. So I anticipate this taking about 30 or so minutes, and then we'll leave some time for discussion, questions at the end. So thank you and welcome. First, we're going to be referencing a lot of different programs today that you can use TechCred for, but because we're AWT, I wanted to put a focus on AWT's programs and what we use to train here and what's TechCred eligible here, just so we're all on the same page when we're referring to uh, training. So I'm just going to go over our training options really quick. And if you have any questions or comments along the way, just hop in. So AWT offers several training programs. The biggest and the first one is our apprenticeship program. So we run an apprenticeship program for 5 manufacturing occupations: precision machinist, mold maker, tool and die maker, tool programmer, and numeric control. Those are all 4-year long apprenticeships culminating in a journeyman certificate, where our inspector quality control program is 2 years, also culminating in a journeyman certificate. So that's our apprenticeship program. Apprentices come in 1 night a week for 2 hours, some hands-on learning with subject matter experts, and then they also do some online related instruction and on-the-job training. Next, we have our monthly upskilling sessions. So each month, AWT tries to host a different upskilling session based on the needs of our local manufacturers. So we started this year off with GibbsCam. We've done tool life and optimization. And in April, we'll be doing blueprint reading basics. So each month is a different topic covering a different subject matter, and we bring in an expert to lead discussion. And then the last program that I just want to bring to everyone's attention today is AWT's Work Advance. So this is our newer program for entry-level job seekers and community members looking to get their foot in the door in the manufacturing sector. Teaches basic shop skills, blueprint reading, shop math, manual, CNC machines, along with some soft skills. And this is part of the Good Jobs Challenge that a lot of different ISPs around the state are doing. So now that we're a little bit familiar to the programs I'm going to be referencing today, let's jump right in. What TechCred is and how we can use it. So essentially, Governor DeWine and Lieutenant Governor Husted launched Ohio TechCred in the fall of 2019, with the purpose being to connect businesses with the talent they need. Essentially, TechCred allows employers in any industry, it could be manufacturing, it could be medical, corporate, anything workforce related, to reimburse up to $2,000 for training upon completion of a credential. So it really allows employers to upskill, retrain, and technologically advance their workforce. Like I said, this came out in fall of 2019. So the first session opened in October, and it has been running ever since. I believe manufacturing is able to make particular use of TechCred, and it's a great way for different trainings to be covered by the state. So what counts as TechCred? There are over 2,700 credentials eligible for TechCred as of the 1st of 2024. So TechCred uses the term credentials, including both certificates and certifications. Certificates are used by individuals who successfully complete a training, and then certifications, are used by individuals who will pass a standardized assessment. And for a credential to be eligible, it must be industry recognized, so used in the industry, but also approved through TechCred's application process. It must be technology focused, which just means that it prioritizes the development of digital skills or STEM-related technical skills. And it must be short term, so able to be completed in less than 12 months. So this means it can be a day program, it can be a week, month, even 1 year program, but anything beyond that is going to not be eligible for TechCred unless it's broken up into smaller portions. And here you can see I have included a photo of eligible categories for each TechCred credential. We are going to be mainly talking in the manufacturing technology section, but credentials can be used from all over all 8 sections: robotics, automation, manufacturing technology, information technology, construction, military and smart transportation, cybersecurity, healthcare, and business. Like I said, TechCred is for every industry. Today, we're just going to focus in on manufacturing. Sound okay? Making sense so far? Cool. For TechCred to be reimbursable, individual maximums, so reimbursements will be made by the state for up to $2,000 per credential. In the past, it's been interpreted as $2,000 per individual. However, you can have one individual earn multiple credentials and be reimbursed up to $2,000 per credential for that same individual. And then round maximums. Round maximums have to do with the application rounds, which I'll go over in just a minute, but employers are eligible to receive up to $30,000 of reimbursement per round. The rounds in 2024 happen approximately every other month. We are currently in an open application round, which runs until the end of this week at 3 p.m., March 29th. But you can see every other month, the application round opens. And this is going to be particularly important because you'll want to make sure when you're applying for TechCred, you are applying within these dates. So somewhere in between March 1st and March 29th at 3 p.m., you would apply for TechCred in March. I'm going to go over the timeline, how this works, and continue from there. But when I give everyone a second to look at those application rounds, after this meeting's over, I'll also send a summary, which will include those application rounds, just in case you don't have them, but they can also be found on TechCred's website if you're ever looking for them. Okay, so our TechCred timeline, as AWT, whenever I am assisting someone with TechCred or working towards TechCred, I try to make sure they understand the importance of submitting materials and documents on time. This will allow any organization to make sure the money is properly allocated and distributed. If a deadline is missed or a piece of documentation is missing, it is less likely that that organization will be able to be approved for TechCred funding. So I always stress to follow the application rounds and deadlines. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time on step 1, how to apply. We'll go over steps 2 through 4 rather quickly because they happen in the background without the employer having to keep it in mind very much. And then we'll go over step 5 as well. So step 1, apply. This is the part that a lot of people you lose a month simply because the application is semi-overwhelming. To apply, the employer needs to make sure that the funding application period is open. So those dates we just looked at, March, May, July, needs to fall within one of those dates. And then the important part is that the employee must start training during that open application round or the month after. And that not only means the employee needs to start training during that month, but the company needs to be invoiced and pay the invoice for that training during that month. So, for example, right now we're currently in the application round for March. I could have an employee start TechCred eligible credentials in March or April to be eligible for that March TechCred round. If I had an employee that started in February, I would not be able to approve them for March's TechCred. I would have had to do it in January. It's a little confusing, but as we talk through it, if there's any questions, let me know. We're going to go over the steps to qualify, just because if you haven't seen this type of application before, it can be overwhelming and intimidating. So I'm going to walk through it. And if I miss anything or you have a clarifying question, jump in. The first step, like I've been saying, is to ensure that the TechCred application period is open. If it's not open, there's not going to be a place on the website to apply. So you'll be able to find out rather quickly if it's open or not. All TechCred applications can be done through techcred.ohio.gov/apply. And you're going to see the first chunk on the homepage is that the TechCred application is open, and there'll be a little yellow button to apply. Once you click that button, it'll take you to sign in to your Ohio ID, which looks like this box that I'm going over with my cursor. And the Ohio ID is a state digital identity that most companies will already have. If your company does not currently have an Ohio ID, it's super simple to create one and follow the steps, but that is necessary for signing up for TechCred or almost any other program through the state of Ohio. Once you fill out your Ohio ID, you're going to enter in your federal tax ID, which will look like step 3 down here. If you don't know your federal tax ID, someone at your organization will. I have companies that do know it, and then companies that keep it a little closer to their chest. So that information should be with your organization. And then you'll get onto the application homepage of TechCred. If you've never applied for a TechCred before, it will be pretty empty. If you've applied for TechCred, you'll see all of your previous applications in that area. To apply for a new round of TechCred, you're going to scroll to the bottom of the homepage and look for a new application button. This is right where my cursor is. Fairly simple to find. Now the complicated part. I'm going to zoom in, so don't mind if it makes you a little dizzy real quick. There are 3 portions of the application. There's applicant information, which we're going to go over first, the training plan, which we're going to go over next, and then the submit and agree. So business information, this is often the trickiest part, because if you don't have this information off the top of your head, it's going to require some digging and to go look for it. Federal tax ID is always the first question. Are you a government entity? In most cases, this will be no. Business name, it's very important that the business name you enter matches what's on the Secretary of State's office website in their business details report. So if you're not sure what that is, you can always click on this link to the side, and it will inform you what that link or what that official business name is. You will go ahead and verify that the business name is registered with the Ohio Secretary of State's office. If it's not, you'll have to register it with the Secretary of State. This next section where you have to upload a copy of the Ohio Secretary of State's business detail report. When you first go into the application, it's going to give you this red message, save the application, and then upload the document. So we'll come right back to that after going through the rest of the first section. Ohio charter number. Again, all these little blips off to the side will give you great hints on where to find this if you don't already know it off the top of your head. The payee ID number is where I've run into some trouble before with applicants. So the payee ID number is essentially setting up your business with almost a sort of direct deposit account with the state of Ohio. And that allows the state, once you get reimbursed, to put that reimbursement amount into your organization's bank account. So if you don't have a pay ID account, never set one up, this is going to take a small chunk of time, but you'll register as a new payee and update all of your information, how it appears on your Secretary of State business entity summary. The important thing about the payee ID is it's going to take a couple of days to generate. I've had it take a week. I've had it take 2 weeks. So you want to make sure that if you haven't already put in a payee ID or haven't generated this already, that you do so with plenty of time left in the application period. There is a workaround to this. If you are working up to the last minute, getting your application in, on that last day of the application period that it's open, you will be able to submit the application without a payee ID number, and the Office of Development will reach out to you when you receive your payee number, and you'll be able to enter it in after the application period is over. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. That is a little confusing, but it's very easy to work through as we're setting it up. Then some business information. So check the box if you're a minority-owned business, a woman-owned business. Put in the Ohio address. Again, it has to be an Ohio address. So if your organization has locations in other states, you're going to want to put the Ohio location in there. Business industry, manufacturing, in most cases, number of full-time employees. As long as you have one or more, you should be completely okay. Business website. And then this last section is the business contact information. So whoever is filling out the application, typically HR or the supervisor of the trainee, will put their contact information in this box. There is a section to put another person in this application, and you can add additional contacts if needed. So once you get to the bottom of this page, you're going to make sure you click the Save button right where my cursor is. And before the application will allow you to click Next, it's going to have you scroll back up to where it said, please save the application to upload this document. This is now going to have an upload box where you can go to the Secretary of State's office website, save the PDF of the business detail report, and upload it to the section. And then the first section of your TechCred application is done. You'll be able to click Next. And go to the training plan section. Now the training plan will allow you to add credentials up to $30,000 per round. So if you are planning on training more employees or have more individuals than what the $30,000 program allows, you can always add them in different sessions as long as they start and are billed in that round. So when you get to the training plan page, you're going to click Add Credential, and this is going to bring up a yellow pop-up box that looks something like this. In this case, as an example, our employee is going to be completing the first year of our precision machinist apprenticeship. So when this is blank, it'll have nothing on either of these three lines. You're going to click Select Credential. It'll bring up another pop-up box, ask you to pick the credential category, and those are those 8 categories that I talked about on the second slide: manufacturing technology, construction, information technology, cybersecurity. Most cases for everyone on this call, it's going to be manufacturing technology, and then it will bring up a very large list of credentials. Most likely, you're going to need to use the search function. In this case, I just typed in AWT, and it brought up all AWT approved credentials. Now, sometimes you are doing a new training program with a new organization, and they do not have their credential listed on TechCred as an industry recognized credential. This is completely okay. You can still get reimbursement for it. All you need to do is, instead of selecting a credential like I just talked through, you would scroll down to the bottom of that pop-up box and choose the credential I want to select is not listed. It'll have you enter some information about the credential, which AWT, if that happens, in our case, we will provide all of the information to you. In other cases, you might have to ask the sponsor or the training provider to provide that information. An important thing that I hadn't mentioned about TechCred is the training provider, whoever provides the training, whether that's AWT or an online provider, a community college, whoever it is, needs to be separate from the organization that you're applying from. So if I'm applying as Company A to TechCred, Company A can't train the employee and get reimbursement back from the state for their own training. So that can be one roadblock that you'll face, but keep in mind it just has to be a different training provider than your organization. Once you select the correct credential, in this case, Precision Machining Year 1, then you will click this drop down and say whether the credential will be completed in person, online, or a combination of online and person. In this case, it's online in person, so that's what I selected. Then you'll move down to the expenses per person section, training costs per person. So this is going to include all of the costs that the tuition or the cost for the training is, no matter if it's over, under the maximum amount allowed for TechCred. So in our case, apprenticeship costs $2,800 per year. So that's what I entered. Full name of the training provider, AWT, in the second box where my cursor is, and then type of training provider. So depending on whether you're getting training through an ISP, a community college, a technical center, you're going to choose the correct dropdown. In this case, AWT is a nonprofit. They don't have a nonprofit option, so we select other. But this can vary based on who your training is done by. And then these gray boxes auto-populate. So the total actual cost per person, $2,800, just what I entered above in the training cost, and then reimbursement amount requested per person. Since 2,000 is the max, that allows TechCred that TechCred allows us to claim for reimbursement. That's what I put in that section. And the employer contribution per person auto-populates to $800. Now this will come into play when the application is scored, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Finally, down here at the trainee information, at this point, when you are applying for the credential, applying for that TechCred, you do not need to know exactly who is doing the training. So if you know you have 5 people that you want to put through OSHA 10, but you don't know exactly what 5 people they are, that's perfectly okay. You don't need their names at this point. You will need their names and employee information when we get to reimbursement. But in the trainee information, you can put in the number of incumbent employees who will earn the credential. In this case, I just have 1 going through the program, number of prospective employees who will earn the credential. So if I was hiring for an additional apprentice and I wanted to start them in the same period, but hadn't hired them yet, I would also put a 1 there. But since I'm not in this hypothetical situation, that number is 0. Again, these gray boxes will auto-populate. Total number of employees is 1, reimbursement amount requested, $2,000, and employer contribution is $800. When you finish this box, you will save and close the credential pop-up box, and then you will get a training plan that looks something like this. So you can see the credential name, Precision Machinist Year 1, reimbursement amount requested, $2,000, number of employees, 1, total reimbursement amount, and the status, it's not submitted yet. So that status will change when it's approved, and it will change when it's time for reimbursement. You can also add different credentials in here in one application. So say I have an employee that's going to do the Precision Machinist Year 1, but I also have an employee that's doing Tool and Die Year 3. I could add that credential in as well. You'll want to make sure you add all of the credentials for each employee's credential you're claiming that round. Once you add it, you want to make sure you click Save, and you're happy with the total reimbursement amount requested and the total number of credentials. Make sure that lines up with what you were thinking in your mind. You'll click Next, and then you'll go to what I think is the easiest part of the application, Submit Application. So you'll read and click through each checkbox below. You'll read the terms and conditions, program guidelines, liabilities, confidentiality, reimbursement requests. You'll actually type in your name there, whoever's filling out the application. So in my case, I would type Kaylin. If someone else is filling out the application, they would type their name. There's still a COVID-19 response, so you'll have to check and write your name there, along with your name and title in this certification statement at the very bottom. Once you fill everything out, you'll click Save one final time and Submit. If everything goes to plan, it'll give you a little box saying you've submitted your application, and you will also get a confirmation email. If anything was missing or incorrectly filled out, it'll give you a little flag, and you'll have to go back and check and make sure that part of the application is correct. So back to the timeline. Like I said, I'm going to go through steps 2 through 4 rather quickly, and then we'll go to step 5. But just so you know what's happening in the background, step 2, the Ohio Department of Development will score the application and award funding. So this is not something the employer needs to be cognizant of or involved in, but the applications will be reviewed competitively based on the level of economic distress and regional balance of awards. So AWT is in Lake County. Lake County might have a higher balance of awards than Trumbull County, but the level of economic distress and regional balance will be considered when making awarding decisions. And then number two, the amount of employer contribution towards the cost of the credential. So the Ohio Department of Development looks for, is the employer also contributing towards that cost of the credential, or are they expecting the state to cover all of it? I do not know, being not in the Department of Development, how much these two are considered. However, they are considered when awarding dollars. Step three is the actual training. So the employer will receive approval for the funding. You'll get an email from the Department of Development. They'll want you to sign a grant agreement and accept the award. So all that entails is going back into your TechCred site, accepting the award agreement, signing your name again, and submitting. If you don't do that grant award agreement step, your application will be canceled and those dollars will be reallocated. So if you're still planning on training and you get that award acceptance email, make sure you log into TechCred and actually accept the award. Otherwise, you won't be eligible to claim that reimbursement. Then the employee must start an eligible credential program. So whether it's that month or the month right after. Step four is to complete. So the eligible employee needs to complete the approved credential. This could take anywhere from a couple days to 12 months. So like I said, these are short-term programs, have to be completed within 12 months. When that program is completed and the credential is earned, the employer must be provided with a copy of the approved credential. You'll need that to submit reimbursement. So finally, on that last step, submitting for reimbursement, the employer will submit all documentation to the state to receive reimbursement. And it's important that you do this within 6 weeks of the employee completing the credential. So you'll get an email when the time is coming close to the expiration date when you can no longer submit for reimbursement. You'll get an email from the Department of Development, and you'll have to log back in the same way we did during our application process to TechCred's site. You'll go into the open application that appears on the homepage after you submit, and I'm going to walk through that process in just a minute, but there are pieces of documentation you want to make sure you have before you start this process. So you're going to want a copy of the credential earned, an invoice identifying the cost of the credential, proof of payment, and an employment verification form. So let's walk through the steps real quick. This is a lot of information to digest. I'm going to let you take a picture. I'll also send this out, both the PowerPoint and a list of steps themselves, but I want to highlight step 7. So when we get there, just make it a little easier to read. You're going to log in to TechCred the same way we did the first time. Then go to the main applications page, identify the correct application round. So there might be scenarios in which you have several employees completing several different credentials in different rounds. You want to make sure you are submitting reimbursement for the correct round. And then click the View Edit button all the way to the right of the application. So if you've never been into TechCred before, you'll see a little eye. It's a blue eye that you'll click to view, edit, and submit for reimbursement. So remember how we had those 3 tabs when submitting for approval, applying for TechCred the first time. When you're ready for reimbursement, a reimbursement request tab will appear as the 4th tab on the top of that screen. For each credential obtained, you're going to click an Add Employee button and enter all the required fields. So it'll ask for identifying information for the employee, as well as the credential they completed, when they completed it. Step 7 is what I want to highlight the most. So you're going to upload the supporting documents as a single PDF. It's important that they're as a single PDF. If there are multiple PDFs or the Department of Development can't find all of the documentation that they need, you're not as likely to be approved for reimbursement. So first, a copy of the credential earned. If this was, let's go back to our example of AWT apprenticeship, precision machinist year 1, that's a certificate that the apprentice employee earns. So that gets sent to the employer, along with an itemized invoice that clearly identifies the cost of the credential. So we send invoices every year for the cost of apprenticeship. I always, when I'm going to help my employees with TechCred, my employers with TechCred rather, I will always resend that invoice. That way they have updated and don't have to search for it. If you're working with a training provider that doesn't do that, just make sure you saved your invoices and are able to go back and find it when the time is right to submit for reimbursement. You'll need proof of payment. So it could be a clear check, credit card statement, bank statement. The document has to identify the training provider. So in this case, AWT, the amount paid, the date paid, and show that the person who paid is the TechCred grantee. So company A paid AWT. I send them their itemized invoice that has the invoice, the cost of the tuition, along with proof of payment, the check number with both of our names on the invoice, the date they paid, the amount paid. So in that case, that's one document for us, but other training providers might be 2 or more documents. So making sure that, you need an invoice and a proof of payment for reimbursement. And then last is something fairly new in TechCred. It's the TechCred employment verification form for each employee. So if you have one employee that went through the apprenticeship and you need to submit TechCred for them, easy enough, fill out the one employment verification form. If you have 12 or 20 or more, it's going to take a little bit more time and you'll need to fill out an additional employment verification form for each individual. But that is linked to this presentation. So when I send it out, you're able to click on the link and find the form. It's also linked in my instruction sheet. So if you ever need it, it's there. It's also on the TechCred website if you ever have trouble finding it. Once you upload those in a single PDF, you're going to submit the request and it's going to send you a confirmation email. You submitted the request. Once it's been approved, payments typically made within 30 days of the approval date. So it can take a little bit of time, but if you're a smaller, mid-size, even large company, that reimbursement can make a big dent in employee costs and training your employees to do what they need to do in a tech-focused economy. So, all that being said, I know I just threw a whole ton of information at you. I want to make sure any employers on here know to utilize your industry sector partnership connections. So in this case, in our case, that's AWT. If you're located in Lake Geauga or Ashtabula County, that's AWT. If you're located in another county, it might be a different industry sector partner, but we can always help point you in that direction. You're also able to reach out to your Department of Development representative. In this region, it's Shannon Vanderpool. She is fantastic and is able to answer questions quickly and thoroughly. I always recommend if you have questions, reaching out to her. We can always put you in contact with her as well. But at this point, I'd love to open the floor to questions. What was confusing, didn't make sense, or you'd like more clarification on? And you can go ahead and just unmute and talk out.
I do have a question, Kayla.
Yeah.
This is Whitney over at Slave Machine Products. And when you had showed the app, like the applying screenshot on the actual government website,
Yeah.
it had noted that the program needed to be like you were looking at the March one. It was at the very beginning when you were first like going to log in, and it said training for the March application needed to start on or after February 1st.
Yes.
But in your little follow, each step, it said to do it the month of the application or the month after.
You're right. That was my mistake. It is the month of the application or the month before.
Before.
I'm
Okay.
so sorry. That was on me. Um, yeah, so for February and March, you can apply during the March opening.
Okay.
But if you have someone starting in April, you can apply for TechCred during the May opening.
Okay. Nope, that's great. I was
Yeah.
just like, oh no, I'm like, which one? I
No,
had
I
some.
will make a note to fix that before I send this presentation out. Thank you so much. I
Great.
apologize if that caused confusion.
Hey, Kayla, this is Todd Courtney from Crown Composites Tooling.
Hi, Todd.
Do you know are the credential programs location neutral and can be, for example, I see on the tech cred list that there's a Work NC CAM software training program for advanced, but as far as I know, they only offer that either on site at a local, we can contract with somebody to come into our facility and train for a couple days here on site, or they offer it up in Detroit area. Are programs with outside the state still eligible for tech cred?
Yes. So they can be outside the state as long as you're sending an employee there or someone, an individual from that organization is coming in to train. Because if you think about it, a lot of the credentials are online, so they can't really prohibit it to state borders. Um, so it can absolutely be out of state as long as you shouldn't have any problem, especially if that credential is already listed, approved for tech cred. That should be relatively simple to go in and add, even if it's out of state. So yeah, you should have no problem with that. What I will do is reach out to Shannon and double check that that is the case. So I'll follow up hopefully this afternoon and with a response from her, making sure that that is the case. I'm fairly certain it is, but I would hate
Okay,
to give you wrong information. So I'll double
so
check.
as a follow-up to that, let's
Yeah.
say hypothetically sending two people up to Detroit for a couple days for this training. Is the tech credit only available for the cost of the training itself, or does it also cover travel expenses and things like that?
Let me go back and just see what the application says. Because I believe so the training costs include tuition, lab fees, manuals, and textbooks. It does not specify that it includes training. So I am not sure 100%, but again, I will reach out and find out for you and let you
Okay.
know. I would think in this case that sending people up to Detroit to get that training would cost more than $2,000 per person. But I will check and see what Shannon says and see if that's able to be included.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Sorry I didn't have that answer for you, but I'll figure it out. What other questions are there? Wonderful. Well, if no one has any other questions or you want to chat offline about TechCred or how industry sector partnerships can help you out with the process or my process of going through it with employers, I'd be happy to answer an email, a phone call, send me a chat, and we'll work through it. I will get those answers, fix the month on the presentation, and make sure everyone has a copy of the presentation, my detailed step-by-step instructions for filling out TechCred applications. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or any other AWT staff. We'd be happy to help you. Well, I'm going to give you about 13 minutes back of your morning. I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of their week, and please don't hesitate to reach out if you need anything.